Fine. First session today, so I don't want to go too in depth on the data with you before I taught you how to read it and how to understand it. I'm just going to recap kind of in a little bit more detail than what we already talked about today. Okay, so I'm going to focus on your fastball because that's your primary pitch, and I'm going to talk a lot about the spin efficiency, right? Because you were cutting the ball and we talked about that, right? So if I'm throwing it towards you, right, 100% spin efficiency is going to be true backspin here. If it's a high arm slot, I'm coming out here, it's going to be here. But it's true backspin, right? So the hands, the fingers are going to stay behind the ball. Now, what you're doing today on a lot of these pitches is you're cutting it. So instead of being here with it, you're off to the side a little bit. So you're pulling down more on the side, and we're getting out more towards like a gyro ball, right? So here's where I want you. Your arm slot, it would be more like here, okay? I don't want it out here. Okay, so that's what we've got to work on. We talked about that a lot today. Out of the fastballs that you threw, there were 3 strikes. I really want to focus on 2 of them. One was a little bit of an outlier, but I want to show you some of the data behind this. Okay, so we're talking about spin efficiency. We're going to talk about tilt a little bit as well. All right, so this was the first strike that you threw. Okay, and this is the outlier. So your spin direction tilt is at 130. You can kind of see here how the ball is spinning. All right, there's your access. You were a little bit out to the side of it, right? Spin efficiency is at 74%, gyros at 42 degrees. So you're pulling down a little bit on the outside of the ball, but it's by far not one of the worst ones that you threw today. Okay, strike number 2 was pitch number 18, I believe. All right, again, spin efficiency is at 77. That's lower than where we want it for a fastball, but it's higher relative to the other pitches that you threw today. All right, your spin direction is a little bit more towards noon at 1250, so you can see that right here. Okay, you got behind the ball a little bit more on that, right? Less gyro degree, so it's not spinning as a bullet as much, like that, so you can see the difference. All right, and then pitch 22 is your other strike. All right, and we're at a 1258 spin direction. Still really good spin, 75% efficiency, 41% gyro. All right, so that's what it looks like. Now, I want to show you some of the balls. And now, all of them aren't going to be the same. Really, especially with your primary pitch, you really want consistency, right? These numbers, this, and that really shouldn't change that much on between fastballs. Okay, especially on a 4-seam. So if we go down here, let's just pick a couple random ones that weren't strikes. Okay. Let's see. Let's go here. All right. So this one's not bad, right? A little bit lower here than where we want it. You're getting more towards that 130 direction over here, so you're cutting it a little bit more. All right. But if I cycle through some of these balls, you're gonna see some of the spin efficiencies go down, like this one right here, okay? Pulling down on the side of it a little bit more. All right, gyro degree goes up. Spin direction's not bad. I think you have more command when you're closer to the 12 o'clock instead of going out towards the 130. All right, 62%, same thing here. We're pulling down a little bit on the side. All right, this one really kind of was one of your lower ones. Right, 56%, or we'll call it 57% efficiency. Over half of it's gyro, right? And just to recap on the spin efficiency, it's how much of the spin is being used to project the ball forward, right? So you're sitting here on this particular pitch, your total spin was lower than where it was on average today, right? But you're still generating 1,700 RPMs, right? Revolutions per minute, how many times the ball is spinning, all right? But out of the 1,700, the ball actually plays like it is only spinning 976 times, right? So this ball in reality is going to drop, okay? This spin rate should keep it up, right? This is, as the faster it spins, the more the ball is going to work against being pulled down by gravity. The slower it spins, the more gravity is going to pull it down, which, as we talked about before, as a changeup, right? Where the changeup, we're taking spin off of the ball, so the ball's going to drop as opposed to rise. Okay, so we really want to avoid pulling down on the outside of the ball. What this would look like out of the hand would be about here, where you really want to be back here to generate that backspin. All right, let's look at another couple pitches. All right, here's another one where you pull down on the side of it, right? 1 o'clock, so still not bad, but not as far towards the noon as we want for you. Gyro degrees at 53%, and the efficiency is down to 59%. All right, so really what my suggestion for you to correct this, there's a couple things you can do. You can get a spin grip, so when you play catch at practice and stuff, it'll help keep you behind the ball, and I can send you a link for that. It's basically a 2-finger glove that you wear, not very expensive. The other thing that you can do right now before you would get one of those, lay down on the ground, right? And you can just keep the fingers behind the ball, right? We talked about the grip because you were a little bit wide earlier. We want to have the fingers together, and we want the thumb to be under the middle finger, okay? Lay down on the ground, so pretend my back is on the floor, and I'm just going to sit here and toss the ball up and let it roll off my fingertips, right? So the floor is behind me, right? So you're looking at a floor angle. So I'm just going to go right here, toss the ball up in the air, let it roll off my fingers, and look for the backspin on it, right? That's a very easy way. To be honest with you, back when I pitched, I ended up moving away from a fastball and through a cutter because I was cutting everything anyway. So we just turned that pitch through pitch design into a true cutter as opposed to an inadvertent cutter. I don't think you have that problem. I'm naturally at this angle. So it was very hard for me to stay behind it, and it still is without using a thumb tuck. But I think that's the starting point for you is let's just, when you're sitting at home, lay on the ground, literally just toss the ball up in the air and try to get the backspin as true as you can. Okay?